Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 104, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts. I'm a former professional athlete turned master metabolic trainer, certified MMA strength and conditioning coach, fitness expert, and I've been, featured on ABC, NBC, CBS. I've written 2 Amazon bestsellers. But I'm known around the world as the guy who helps men over 40, 50, 60, 70 completely transform their lives, their health through naturally increasing testosterone, workouts, nutrition, healthy sleep strategies, mindset, recovery. And this podcast is dedicated to men over 40 or even over 30. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time to join me here because today we are going to talk about the microbiome. We're going to talk about gut health, and we're going to do this with Dr. Chris Damman, who is he's a professor. As a doctor at the University of Washington, and he focuses more on gastroenterology. Wow, I know that I butchered that, but his specialty is digestive health. His specialty is gut health. And today, in this episode, this is a great episode because this episode, we are going to we're going to dive into gut health. And we're going to start with the microbiome and understanding what that is and how that affects our bodies and how important that is. We also get into, what butyrate is, the 4 M's, the 4 C's, the importance of fiber, but not all fiber is made equally. We're going to talk about ways to optimize our microbiome and how to start. This is truly, this was a great episode. I learned so much, to tell you the truth. I thought my gut health game was okay. Being a fitness expert in men over 40, I know that gut health is one of is a major issue in a lot of men, including myself in some ways. I have to, strive to optimize my microbiome, and I'm doing a lot, but there's still more to be done. And so learning this stuff, understanding, and again, it's just, the good thing about this, the great thing about this actually, as Dr. Chris and I were talking, everything that we do in the Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood. The Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood is my men's membership site. It is a program specifically designed for men over 30 actually now, as men continue to suffer, continue to suffer and struggle with low testosterone, with obesity, with chronic illnesses, much lower now. And so the program is designed for that, but everything that we do in this program, from the nutrition piece, which is to optimize our hormones, which is to optimize our gut health, which is to naturally help increase testosterone. Well, the whole program is based on helping increase testosterone and, losing weight, burning fat, building muscle, and living the best, most optimized life ever. From now till you die, like you're going to be in the best shape and the best health, even though because of our age, we're up against so much. But it was really great to hear that all of the things, that are part of, our brotherhood, all the things that we do in the brotherhood are just naturally there. If you follow it, will help with the gut, will help optimize your microbiome. And then there's little things that you continue to add and continue to add and optimize as we age, and stay on top of because of the importance of the microbiome. But it's so nice to know that everything that's in place, dealing with stress, exercise, nutrition, all of those things, are part of the program. So if you are interested in the program, in the Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood, please make sure that you go to over40alpha.com for $1. I'm going to promise you, I will help you lose 7 to 20 pounds in just the first 30 days. But that's not it. I mean, this program is built on 36 phases. That's 36 months of workouts, but not just the workouts. One of the things that the Dr. Chris talked about was community, and that is the number one thing for us. We have our brotherhood. If you're watching this video, I'm putting up the Over 40 Brotherhood tattoo that I have, which other guys in the brotherhood have. That's how strong this brotherhood is. Thousands of guys from all over the world, different walks of life, different color, different races, different religions, but we call each other brothers. We love each other. And that is the solid foundation that will help keep you accountable, will help support you, allow you to let out frustrations when you have things happening in your life that you need to let go so that you can continue to focus on having a very healthy your mental health is healthy, I guess. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So all you have to do is join for $1 for 30 days because I need to prove to you that this program works. I need to prove to you that what I have created and what thousands of other brothers have used and are continuing to use to literally transform their bodies and their lives. I mean, you could go to over40alpha.com/proof, over40alpha.com/proof, PROOF, and the proof is right there. You will be blown away at the number of transformations, the number of testimonials, case studies. It's insane. It's not just about your body, it's about your overall health. So, but I don't want you to just jump in and join. I need to prove that to you. So I prove that to you with the programming, follow along workouts, nutrition. I prove that to you with weekly coaching calls that we have live. I prove that to you with our weekly Brotherhood Hang on the Facebook group. And I prove that to you time and time again with the support, not only of myself, but of your brothers, with a program that works. Anyways, $1, over40alpha.com. I want to see you in there. If you're listening to this, if you've been on the fence, you need to take care of your health. It starts today. And it also starts today by learning about our gut. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Dr. Chris Damman. He's a professor. He is truly a specialist in our gut, in our digestive health, and you are going to love this podcast episode. Listen, it's about just listening. Okay, don't try to. Okay, now what do I have to do right off the bat? Listen, take it in, try to understand, and because we've got a part 2 coming up very soon with somebody else. But now I bring to you Dr. Chris Damman. Enjoy the podcast and enjoy learning about your gut. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Over 40 Alpha podcast. I'm here with my host, or with my I'm here with Dr. Chris Damman, and I'm excited. I'm speechless. I'm excited because I think learning about digestive health, learning about the gut, learning about the benefits and why we need to be focusing on that is something that we all need to know and we all need to take action on. But we can't take action on anything until we have enough knowledge to have the confidence to do so. So let me introduce the great Dr. Chris Damman. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. I wasn't expecting a promotion right from the get-go there.
Well, welcome to thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast. And why don't we just start off with just how did you get into digestive health? How did you get into the gut? What was your evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you ask my family and parents, they would say, right from the get-go with child's potty humor, I was there, and have never really grown up from that. But truthfully speaking, I can trace it all the way back to when I was in medical school, maybe even one of the first lectures that I had, and a talk that was given about how microbes, not, things like pathogens, but microbes that live on, in, and within us, the microbiome, although there wasn't really a term like that for it at the time, were probably really important for our overall health and a lot of the diseases that were increasing, like obesity and diabetes. And that just, it fascinated me, and it's kept my attention ever since. I've followed that through residency and fellowship and beyond.
Wow. So now that was is that your specialty? Is that what you like when you went to school? That was what you really focused on?
Yeah. So, after medical school, I did internal medicine residency. So that would be your, general doctor that you might go see. And then after that, I specialized in gastroenterology, which are diseases specifically of the gut and the digestive system, like the liver and the pancreas. And then within that, my interest, my sort of subspecialty has been the microbiome, the gut microbiome, and how functional nutrition impacts the microbiome.
Right. So what do you think, if why don't you give us a little, overview of exactly what the microbiome is and what that is in regards to our gut or health?
Yes, absolutely. So when we talk about microbiomes, those are these communities of organisms that live on, in and around us, right? So there's microbiomes that exist in our house and in the forest. But usually when people talk about microbiome, they're thinking the gut microbiome. And there are trillions of little, you could almost think of them as partners in health that live within our gut, largely our colon, which is the lower part of our gut. And they serve a really important role. They help us digest food. In fact, it might be as much as 10% of calories are only available after they've digested the food. Otherwise, they would just pass straight through us. They also play a really important role in our immune system, in training it, teaching it what is friend and what is foe. And then lastly, they play an important role in our metabolism. How our body handles the nutrients that come in and get digested by our cells. And this one thing, and that is our nervous system and our brain. There's a really powerful gut-brain connection, and the components that are being made by the microbiome are influencing that as well.
So those are four extremely important parts of, as we're aging. First and foremost, when I look at all four of those things, digestion, immunity, our immune system, our metabolism, and the nervous system and the brain, those are things that are either naturally or because of our health or our lifestyle start to decrease and start to get worse as we get older. Just because of the food we're eating or not eating, and our daily lifestyle, our digestive system is always all over the place. Our immunity, we were just susceptible to an incredible pandemic that exposed a lot of the immunity, lack of a strong immune system. Our metabolism slows down. A lot of that and most of that is lifestyle, but that is something that happens. And then, of course, the brain, brain health, can't forget, I keep forgetting this. I can't remember this. So the fact that the microbiome plays an important part in all four of those things, to me, is it's great, because if I start focusing on that one thing, putting a lot of effort into that one thing, it's going to start to improve some of the major things that happen, right? So let's talk about digestion, because you said something about 10% of our food that we digest is is available right off the bat, right? Which makes sense. But why don't you talk more about the digestive portion of that?
Yeah, for sure. So when we eat food, there's a really complicated process of how that food is broken down into nutrients that can be absorbed by the body and then impact our growing cells. Part of that, happens just with the chewing that we do and the saliva, then down into the stomach and the acid that breaks the molecules apart, and then into the small intestine with the pancreas and the bile that comes from the liver. And there are parts of food that escape that digestion or that are resistant to that digestion. And one of the big parts is fiber. In fact, that's one of the definitions of fiber. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, just like sugar or starch, but it's it's a carbohydrate that's resistant to digestion. One big type is called resistant starch. So all of these fibers then make their way more or less untouched down into the lower intestine, largely the colon, where the microbiome then has their go at our food. It's their food.
Right.
And we're feeding our partners in health through fiber and some of the other things that don't get digested. And then they produce, tons and tons of different types of molecules that then impact our gut and impact our overall health and all the systems that we just touched on. So they truly are critical because they're making factors. One of those key factors is something called butyrate. It's kind of the star molecule, one of the star molecules that the microbiome is making and impacting health. And without those partners, those molecules aren't being made. And some of them aren't found in our diet or appreciably present in the foods that we're eating. They really only come from the microbiome.
So butyrate, why is that so important? What is Yeah.
So butyrate is an incredible molecule in that it really is impacting all those systems that I just mentioned. So digestion, metabolism, immunity, and brain health or neurocognition. The way it's impacting each of those things gets really complicated. One of the ways is there's actually local immune system neurons and immune cells right in the gut. So impacting those directly and then translated to the whole body. There's actual, neurons that connect the gut and the brain. It's almost like an information superhighway called the vagus nerve that goes in both directions. I like to joke that what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. It gets communicated.
I love it. So that is very important. Now that you say it affects all four. So we can't get it from anything else but we can, but I guess ensuring that the food that we put in our body, I guess gets digested properly by the, in the microbiome so that these things can get, I guess it's a fiber that, it's a fiber. Okay.
The fiber is a big part. I have this little mnemonic called the 4 phonetic Fs. So fiber is the star player. It's the first one, but there's also polyphenols, healthy fats, as well as fermented foods.
Okay.
That are all impacting the microbiome in pretty profound ways and that are relatively deficient currently in our modern diets.
Okay. So we've got the digestion. We need that fiber, which is really important. What about the immunity? Now, I know the butyrate has to do with the immune system, but how does the microbiome affect and help us strengthen our immune system? Yeah.
Well, the immune system essentially needs to be calibrated or balanced, right? It can't be too strong in the inflammatory way, nor can it be too weak in the anti-inflammatory pathway. Too strong one way, you get autoimmune disease and allergy, and too strong the other way, you end up with infection because you're not adequately addressing all of the microbes that are constantly trying to get into the body. One of the ways that butyrate works is it helps calibrate that system. And, a little bit more technically, it has an impact on specific immune cells. One of those cells they're called regulatory T cells. And they're the ones that help dampen the immune system. And so there's been some really fascinating work, largely in models and, mice and rodents at this point, that show some of the models of autoimmune disease are actually improved with butyrate. That's either produced by the microbiome or in some cases given separately.
Okay. So next would be metabolism. So we know again, because I want to break these 4 down just so that everyone gets an idea of, how powerful and how much we need to focus on the microbiome. So where does the metabolism come in?
Yeah. So in terms of metabolism, I'm just kind of giving you examples.
Yes. Yeah.
It's definitely more complicated
Sure.
than this.
Yeah.
But in terms of metabolism, so I'll give you two examples here because I think both are really interesting. One, butyrate stimulates the lining of the colon, specific cells that line the colon, to make gut hormones called GLP-1. They're the exact same hormones that are in these new weight loss blockbuster drugs like Wegovy. And GLP-1 then goes to the rest of the body and regulates blood sugar through the pancreas, regulates our appetite through our central nervous system or brain, regulates how we handle sugar through its impact on muscle cells, fat cells, and liver cells. So that microbiome, butyrate, GLP-1 metabolism axis is one really important one. But another axis that I'm fascinated by is butyrate does get absorbed into the body and will directly impact our cells. And they probably are doing this by controlling how mitochondria are made. And mitochondria are the powerhouses within our cells. They're the literal fuel sources. They make ATP for our cells to grow and to function and thrive. So butyrate is playing a role in how many of those mitochondria are made, how healthy they are. So that's another direct way that they're impacting our metabolism.
Wow. Okay. So this is fascinating. Actually, this is fascinating. Okay. Last but definitely not least is let's talk about brain health and how the microbiome, or if it is butyrate more, how that affects our brain health.
Yep. So in terms of brain health, the mitochondria piece is also relevant. So the butyrate is directly impacting that. We're learning that a lot of the degenerative processes in the brain, like Alzheimer's disease, are linked to mitochondria. There's three things here for the brain that I'll say. So that's the first one. The second one is the microbiome makes a lot of the precursors for neurotransmitters. And then, those precursors through the bloodstream get to the brain or have direct impact on the neurons in the gut. And then the last mechanism that I'll mention is it's the vagus nerve. And that information superhighway that goes both directions. So, for example, if you're nervous before a test, you actually feel it in your gut. Right, totally. Right, like
they call it the
that's a literal,
right? They call it, I'm getting
the butterflies.
That uncomfortable feeling.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. But it goes the other way too. And if your microbiome is not healthy, if you're not feeding it appropriate fibers and other things, then that can impact your mood and your sleep. And we're learning more about this. There's a lot of fascinating research that's coming out.
Okay, so would you say that butyrate, well, I guess based on our conversation so far, but would you say that butyrate is that one thing that can really help with the microbiome? And the other question I want to ask is it fiber? Is fiber the precursor to the production of butyrate, or can other things? It's the fiber piece.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. And there's actually different types of butyrate. Okay. So, isobutyrate versus hydroxybutyrate, et cetera. The type that might be most beneficial is coming directly from fiber. Okay. Proteins can make some other types, but those have not been associated with health like the butyrate that we're talking about. And in terms of, is butyrate the only thing? No, absolutely not. Right. The body is incredibly complex. There's, tons of things that the microbiome is making and lots of checks and balances in place. And then this probably leads to maybe what your next question might be. Can we just get butyrate? And there are companies that produce butyrate supplements. They, in a very limited way, have been studied. There might be some early signals that in some conditions it could be beneficial, but at this point, recommending butyrate would be beyond what the literature can support. What I would recommend is getting a balanced diet of whole foods and, in particular, fiber to support a microbiome, and make butyrate at the right time, in the right places, in the right amounts, the way our bodies have been designed.
Yeah, I definitely, like, for me, it's about behavior. It's about lifestyle. Like, the supplementation happens after, if you even need it, after you've optimized your micro, your gut from, the natural ways. Then you add that supplement to really, optimize to the next level. But yeah, I think everyone wants that short-term fix that, okay, well, you know what? I don't like fiber. I don't like eating fiber. I don't like, well, most people just think fiber is vegetables, but what else can people have in order to get enough fiber in there?
Yeah.
And is there an amount? Because that's another question people ask. Is there going to be an amount, and what sources of fiber can we get?
Yeah. So first, not all fiber is created equal. We talk about it as one thing, but that itself is really complex. Some types of fiber are better for the microbiome. Some, aren't as healthy for the microbiome. And some fibers are soluble versus insoluble, which you might see on packaging sometimes. Yeah. But in terms of in whole foods, how to get enough fiber, people often think, well, I should eat fruits and vegetables. And that's true. There's fiber in those. There's also really good polyphenols that give those fruits and vegetables their color. That's what people mean when they say eat the rainbow. But some of the better sources of fiber for the microbiome actually come from whole grains and from legumes like beans and garbanzo beans and lentils. So nuts, seeds are also a really good source of fiber. And between all those, fiber is in plant-based foods. There isn't fiber in animal source foods. You might think, oh, well, the mussels are fibers, but it's a different type of fiber. Totally. Having all these different types of plant source foods is really important. In terms of how much, it depends on how physically active you are, how many calories you're consuming. It depends on whether you're male or female, and your age. But generally speaking, we're talking about 30 grams. Okay. And most people get 15.
Right.
In fact, it's less than 5% of the population that gets more than 15 grams. So we're incredibly deficient.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
now,
okay, keep going.
Keep going. Okay. So you were alluding to this. You can increase whole foods, and you should. I say the solutions 1, 2, and 3 are whole foods, and then start thinking about, well, we've been talking about whole foods. We've been talking about healthy diets. We know these rules, and we've been hearing from our physicians and healthcare providers for the last 20, 30 years on how to do this. And yet, we're actually taking back steps and things are getting worse. So I think one of the ways that we're going to really short circuit this problem is understanding more specifically what it is in the whole foods that's important for health, and how that relates to probably the microbiome and the mitochondria in the body. And I think in the short term, people could think about using prebiotic fibers and some of these other healthy things to supplement their current diets. Maybe in the future, what we not only get in the whole food section at the grocery store, but also, in packaged foods, and heaven forbid, even fast foods, will have a lot of these healthy things added to make them much closer to the whole foods. Maybe not ever as good as the whole foods.
Wait.
We can't possibly reinvent nature, but
Wait, hold on. You think,
yeah.
I know, so you think that in the future we're going to get healthier? Not us, but the foods, because I'm seeing the foods getting worse and worse as we keep going. Soil, like everything else. So I know I'm like you, optimistic in the fact that it would be great if most of the food, but I think it's actually getting worse. And needing to supplement isn't a bad thing. I think it's good to supplement with, but I think the first step is like, okay, well, let me get the balanced meals, balanced plates in, and we call them balanced plates, so that I'm ensuring that I have, different types of whole foods in my nutrition and my lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, because I still got to build muscle. I still got to, but the gut's going to be key. So I'm going to get that fiber. But if I don't like, legumes, or, I'm still don't like to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, which guys tell me all the time, being able to supplement would be good. At least a good start.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I think people don't always think about is the supplements are best taken in the context of a meal.
Yeah.
Because the way they work is in concert with all those other nutrients. The way the microbiome likes to see those nutrients is mixed in with all of the other nutrients. On the side of the food, it's a complex mixture. On the side of the microbiome, it's complex. And the way they interact is
magic,
complex, and it should be that way. Yeah. So not taking it just, on its own in the morning, but, having your fiber, for example, at the time of your breakfast or at the time of your lunch or dinner.
Yeah, I think it's great. So, okay, so we're still, would you say the microbiome is the number one thing in the gut that, like, that's like the city, right? Like that's like, if you look at it, it's like a city of all of these things that are happening, and you want to make sure that your city's safe and healthy and all that stuff. So you're feeding it the right foods. I want to ask you a question about stress, and like, is it just the fiber in the food that affect the gut, or are there other things that people may not be thinking about, like, that happen in your life?
Yeah. So I've got these acronyms, the first are the 4 phonetic Fs, I think, in terms of how lifestyle in general affects the gut and health. Refer to the 4 Ms.
Yeah.
It's molecules, microbes, movement, and mind. Molecules, for each of these, there's the good and the bad. So molecules, there's good food, healthy food, and toxins. Right. For microbes, there's our microbiomes and pathogens. Right. For movement, there's activity and exercise and getting outdoors and sitting on the couch in front of a TV, or, sleeping too much. And then for mind, it's about mindfulness practices, getting good sleep, calming your nerves, and the reverse, having anxiety, not getting enough sleep, not getting the mental health breaks that you need. So yes, all of these things, the pillars of health, profoundly contribute to your overall health. And there's one more that is implicit and is perhaps the most important, and I call it the big C, and that's community. It's the foundation to all of those pillars. I love it. It's your listenership. It's how those listeners come together, and maybe even talk with each other outside of the podcast. It's our friends, our family, our colleagues, and those interpersonal relationships that give us meaning, give us purpose. Without meaning and purpose, what's the point of health? What's the point of any of the pillars supporting health? So I see that resonates. I think it's an important truth.
That is the Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood, which is actually our membership community. It's a community of, I think, thousands of men from all over the world who have come together that are on that journey of health. And, there's guys who have, the reason why I'm showing you this tattoo, because there's guys who have this tattoo that are tattooed for life because of the importance of the community, right? That's extremely important because, again, we need that we didn't have community for a long time. We saw what happened to our health and mental health, et cetera. So that community is very, very strong. So I love that's part of your 3 M's and C, I guess we'll call it. The 3. So, okay, let me just ask about the movement portion and the microbiome, because I know that I know my listeners will ask all the questions I'm asking you are exactly what they're going to ask. So, the movement and microbiome, how does that affect your microbiome, exercise, etc.?
Yeah. So one of the ways isn't necessarily just the movement, but getting outdoors.
Right.
And outdoors in sunshine, the ultraviolet light interacts with the molecules in our skin and make vitamin D. And vitamin D is often taken as a supplement. The vitamin D that our cells make is actually more potent in the body. And vitamin D has been connected to a healthy gut, healthy microbiome, as well as many other functions within the body. So that's one way. Another way is when you're outdoors, it's a different environmental microbiome, the soil microbiome, the microbiomes associated with plants. Those are probably all impacting you. In fact, there's studies that have looked at folks that garden and their gut microbial diversity is better. But then in terms of movement, how does that work? And in elite athletes, there have been found these microbes that metabolize lactic acid. And it's a bit of a hypothesis, but it may be that anaerobic exercise leading to higher amounts of lactic acid then are perceived by the microbes in the gut, and they change in order to accommodate that and metabolize the lactic acid and help get rid of it. And one of these microbes has been isolated from elite athletes and is being used as a possible intervention to help people with exercise. Now, the reverse is true as well. Our microbiome impacts how we perceive exercise. And there was a fascinating paper that was just published that showed certain types of microbiomes in some people are associated with them actually enjoying running and anaerobic exercise more. So if you're the type of person who's like, oh, I don't like running, you can just blame it on your microbiome.
That's me, man. That's me. I'll do it if I have to, but that's me. I love the fact that the lactic acid piece of it, lactate, because, our workouts are metabolic, right? I'm a master metabolic trainer, so they're metabolic. And so that is one of the things that you feel. The first thing that you feel is the burn, or which is the lactate that builds up. So having that healthy gut can help prolong that lactate release. And then the mind, I think we talked about it, but let's just talk one more time about the mind and the microbiome and how that helps. Because I guess that's related to the brain health, correct?
It is, yeah. So mental health, sleep health. Let's see. So there's a really interesting animal study that was done that gave, in this case, it was probiotics and certain types of probiotics, and found that mice exhibited less anxiety behavior. Now, you can't really say a mouse is anxious or not because we can't get in their head, but you can say if their behavior looks like they're being anxious or not. That's a little distinction. Yeah. And so the probiotics seem to improve that. What's fascinating is when that information superhighway, the vagus nerve that connects the gut and the brain, was clipped.
Right.
So, it was like breaking the road. That effect was lost.
Wow.
So very real demonstration of how that vagus nerve is really important. Another study, similar probiotics were given to people, and really fancy MRIs were done on the brain. They're called functional MRIs, and these functional MRIs can see changes in the brain activity in different parts. It's almost like this color cloud that shifts, from one part of the brain to the other, depending on how you're thinking and what you're thinking about. And they found that parts of the brain that are associated with anxiety were decreased in activity associated with giving these probiotics to people. So, a little bit more relevant to our health than the models, and taking it one step further. Lastly, there have been some studies showing certain types of diets, like the Mediterranean diet, and even just giving fiber can help with mental health and mood and sleep. And I think that this is an incredibly fruitful and fascinating area, because mental health is such an underserved topic within medicine and general health. And we don't often realize just how profoundly our food and our microbes in our gut are impacting our brain.
Totally.
And I think with that, with these developing studies and understanding, that will be a big unlock, because it's not just about, we'll have positive, thoughts, or, just take this antidepressant. But the foods that we, and truthfully, exercise is also incredibly important, will be a critical part of mental health.
Wow, that's great. All great things to hear. And, again, it's all about taking action, though. When people hear this stuff, it's all about taking action. You don't have to do everything at once, but little by little, changing the type of foods you're eating, ensuring that you're getting 3 to 4, days of exercise, getting outside, like even if it's freezing cold, get outside, and just get used to being in nature and then when it gets warmer, living in it as much as you can, which is what my wife and I have done our goal sheet in our bathroom, 200 kilometers. It's like one of the things that we love to do.
Funk, can I tell you something about getting outside in cold? One thing I didn't mention, there's some really fascinating work that's been done on how cold shocking.
Yes.
So cold showers, ice plunges, maybe even just going outside in cold will help stimulate your mitochondria. The mitochondria, after all, are what generate heat, as well as energy to move our muscles. I think in our current modern society, we live in these temperature-controlled, environment-controlled bubbles. We go from our house to our cars to our offices, and the temperature remains the same, with the exception of that mad dash from door to door to door, whether it's hot or cold. But our bodies evolved to experience these fluctuations in heat, and probably are important to our health. So next time you feel that shiver, or you're super hot, embrace it, and know that that's actually your body responding in the way that it should be. It's
so funny you just said that, because I have been doing this for the last, I'm in Toronto, Canada, so it gets cold here. I've been doing this I started doing this when I did a Wim Hof workshop. But every morning this is just not off top, but every morning one of my rituals is just kind of cleaning the place for my wife, so that whenever she comes home from work or when she wakes up, she goes downstairs, it's like heaven for her, right? I want her to mentally be in a good spot. But one of the things I do every morning in my, shorts and sleeveless, no matter what the temperature is, I will take the garbage out to, it's across the street, and I'll take it out, and it just in my slippers, but it doesn't matter how cold. When I come back in, I feel like $1,000,000, like
invigorated.
I feel just like, this is like, you want to go back out, but then reality sets back in. And it's like, it's actually cold out here. But when I first go out there, It's like nothing, I'm just up in the garbage. I'm getting in there. I'm just feeling it. I'm breathing. I'm, blowing out the cold air and just embracing it. And when I get back in the house, I just feel so energized. It's insane. I keep telling my wife about that, and she's like, "You're crazy," but I do like that. Now let's jump into probiotics and prebiotics. Because what's your take on both of those? Are those things that people should be taking in order to help with the gut? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're both important. First and foremost, in terms of probiotics, the best approach to that would be fermented foods because the microbes there are in their kind of natural order. They have all the complexity. There's actually, hundreds, if not thousands of different types of microbes that are present in some fermented foods. Right. They have their prebiotic, they have their postbiotic, like it's all contained. There are probiotic supplements that have been very well studied and that are produced under rigorous and standardized conditions where the amounts are measured and that are connected to very specific health outcomes. And so under the direction of your healthcare provider, informed by those studies, informed by the specific condition, I think probiotics can be helpful. Beyond that, I think there is this sort of general fascination with gut health, and folks want to reach for something that's going to be helpful. They see a lot of claims on probiotics, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different ones to choose from now, and the supermarket or the pharmacy. But whether or not you're getting what the bottle says you're getting, and whether or not it's helpful for you specifically, it's probably a bit of a drop in the bucket. Yeah. In terms of prebiotics, like fermented foods, the place to start is whole foods. Right. But it's really hard to get up to that 30 grams, and taking foods that are engineered to have more of the prebiotics, or even just a prebiotic supplement. Ideally one that's been well studied, because not all fiber is created equal, but one that's actually been connected to health in specific ways is probably the best way to go. Okay.
So that segues into, at this point, into the Supergut. And you're part of, you have created our Supergut supplement powder. Is that correct? That's correct, right? I'm not okay. Yeah. So talk about Supergut. Let's give me. Yeah.
So I can't take credit with the formulation. Okay. That was done before I came on. Okay. By Mark Washington, the founder, right. And team. But the formulation that they arrived on very much resonates with my own understanding of the gut and fibers. And the specific formulation that the Supergut company has, it's resistant starch and beta-glucan, and both of those are excellent prebiotics for the microbiome. Both of those also, we can talk about this, are low FODMAP fibers. Okay. So when I say not all fibers created equal, one of the things that distinguishes is where the fibers are fermented. Is it in the upper gut or lower gut? Right. If it's the upper gut, then that can actually cause issues. Right. And those are the high FODMAP fibers.
Okay, right. So so there's the good fiber, the bad fiber, or and is that also in foods as well? Like, are there some foods that will have?
Yes. So FODMAPs are present in whole foods, and an example of a FODMAP is inulin, and inulin is found in onions, garlic. You'll often see onion and garlic powder in really finely granulated form in processed foods as part of the ingredients. And folks that have irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, one of the causes is actually inulin. It's triggering, diarrhea and bloating in folks because these prebiotic fibers, which are high FODMAP, are digested in the upper gut and cause these symptoms. It's not for everyone.
No.
Some people are just fine with them.
Right.
But in others, it can be really limiting without even knowing exactly what's causing it. Now, that's just one type of FODMAP fiber. There's other types as well that can also be found in whole foods. And it's a very individualized thing as to whether we have these reactions or not.
Wow. So I do. Okay. So there's a couple things I want to hit here. First, the resistant starch, because I remember you said that and I wrote it, I asterisk it, and then I didn't follow up with it. So what is resistant starch?
Mm-hmm. First, when we think of starch, we think of that white powder that's not good for us, just like sugar. And that is not categorically true. So there are different types of starch. There's starch that is very readily digested, and that might as well be like taking a spoonful of sugar. Some might say it's even worse for you because it's the sustained release of sugar as opposed to just one shot of it. But there are other types of starch which truly are resistant to our own enzymes digesting, and that make it all the way down to the colon. And rather than being broken down into sugar and absorbed into our bloodstream and causing insulin spikes, it does the opposite. The microbes make butyrate from it, and butyrate helps control that blood sugar and insulin. That's resistant starch. And if you want to get even more granular,
I do.
Forgive the pun. There's different types of resistant starch. Some which are about kind of the inherent structure of the food. Others which are about the specific composition of that starch. There's even some which I call Franken-starches that have been, engineered by scientists. And then lastly, fascinating is some starch resistant starch is only created when you cool a food down after heating it. So you may have heard with rice or potatoes, if you have leftovers, if it's been in the refrigerator, even after you heat it up in the microwave or in the oven or stove, it will, those starches sort of congeal in a specific way, and so are more resistant to digestion and are more likely to go down into the colon and feed the microbes.
So that's good.
Yeah, that's
good. Okay, that's good.
Eat more leftovers.
100%. I'm the king of leftovers. That's okay. Wow, there's a lot of information. Like, this is a lot. I mean, I think it's all important because it kind of starts to, the brain starts to go, oh wow, okay, I got to start figuring out, all of these things. The FODMAPs and the butyrate for sure. Putting more respect on the microbiome by ensuring that we're doing all of the things that we need to do on it, like the 3Ms, and the probiotic and prebiotic. So where would somebody start? Like, where do you start in the whole scale of what we talked about today? If you're just a guy who either is never, working out, eating relatively healthy, trying to get that sleep and stress under control, and still having issues with the gut, still not, losing the weight you thought you would, still having foggy, stuff like that. Or, we already know the person who's just been sitting on the couch. They just need to start with the four M's. But I'm talking about guys who even, like for myself, where I know I still, the microbiome in I have to pay more attention and, try to optimize as much as possible with the foods I eat and that sort of thing. I've got a lot of the four M's in place, but there's still more to go. So where would I start, or where would someone generally start?
Yeah. Health is built on a foundation. And so the obvious place to start is community. It starts with listening to this podcast. It starts with support from the brotherhood, the support from your community. And so that might mean identifying one person that can hold you accountable, that you can go through the journey with together. That's super, super important. The next thing to do is to ask yourself, what is achievable for me? And where do I think I can make an improvement? So you might be really strong already in diet, or you might be really strong already in exercise, the movement piece. But where is it that your deficit lies? And where do you feel like you can make one or two incremental, achievable changes? The incremental, achievable, and one or two are all really important, not to go overboard. I think with the support of your community and with one or two changes that you can achieve, that gives you confidence that then you can take other steps and add other things into your regimen. So I think the incremental piece and having that community and support are both really, really important.
I love it. I think you just, I think we just sparked a 5-day gut health challenge.
There you go.
Internally, what about, so is there a way for someone to go to their doctor or to go to a specialist and see what their gut health is? Like, are there tests? Is that even available, or, and can someone do that?
Yeah, there are a number of what's called direct-to-consumer approaches for measuring your microbiome, where you collect your stool and you send it off in the mail, and then you get a virtual readout of what's present in your gut. How useful that is a big question. And one of the banes of healthcare providers and physicians is, a patient bringing in this sheet and saying, "What do I do about this, doc?"
Yeah, totally.
and the patient is confused. I'll give you a secret. The physician is equally confused.
Not a secret to us.
It's such
we realize that.
It's such a specialized area. And, even microbiome specialists would have a really hard time interpreting those results. That's one part. But the other part is we're just not very good at predicting at this point how the microbiome impacts health.
Okay.
There's associations, but those are pretty loose and weak at this point. So if people ask me, should I do it? I think it can be fun. It's super, it's a fun little game or tool, but how useful is it? Some cases it can be more useful than others, and some companies which are doing it for very specific conditions like diabetes in very responsible ways. But for the general consumer that just wants to improve their overall health, if you approach it as just interesting, I think it can be fun. Yeah. But if it's going about like, well, how can I optimize things? That can be a little bit trickier.
For sure. And then what about food allergies? Like, should you get your food allergies checked? Because maybe there's some foods.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a whole other podcast, because I'm just about to ask you, what if there's certain foods, I'm just about to say there's certain foods that, obviously when I eat, they're healthy, they're under the health, but they just don't my microbiome is not liking it. And maybe that's, what is that? Why is that?
So first, it's really, really important to distinguish between what we call a food intolerance and a food allergy. Okay. I think in the lay public, we think, if it's not affecting me well, I just call it an allergy. Totally. The way a healthcare provider, physician thinks about it is very, very different. Those two buckets. So an allergy is where the immune system is truly allergic to it. An example would be celiac disease.
Right.
Where gluten is a true allergen. It's actually causing an immune response in that person. Right. And that's a serious medical condition that needs to be addressed. There's also gluten sensitivity. It's very real. People truly experience differences in the way their GI system works, can have bloating and diarrhea. It's not an allergy. It's not affecting the immune system.
Okay.
The approach to both is avoiding gluten.
Good call.
So
Great call.
At the end of the day, what it partially boils down to is listening to your body and finding what your triggers are. This raises one other question, and there are allergy testing approaches, whether it be skin prick tests or looking at your blood profile against different allergens. And it's very debated whether those are useful.
Really?
Because the immune system in the gut is very different from the immune system that's in the skin and that's in the blood. So what's happening in the skin and the blood may not be telling you
what's going on down
accurately what's happening in the gut.
That makes total sense. Wow, this is huge. So really, like you mentioned before, community where there's some accountability in figuring out where are my strengths, and now let's think about those, the one or two things I can just start with, the changes I can make incrementally to get that biggest difference or to get that start. And then it just kind of, once you start seeing those results, you get excited to continue down that journey. And with that community, it keeps you accountable to do that. I think that's incredible. This has been awesome. This has been like totally not what I expected in regards to gut health and the digestive health. And it's very eye opening. And, I appreciate this. Are there any things you want a couple of things. First, we're going to, where can people find you? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to learn more, podcasts, et cetera. But any last things that you would, that you want to talk about before we part?
The thing that I always say at the end is I'm just so grateful to podcasts and to you, Funk, for getting these messages out there and making them accessible to people.
Thank you.
It's such an incredibly important role to provide accurate information. So my message to your listeners is to be grateful to you for putting these together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, but I appreciate you even more because I think this is extremely important. And it's like one of the things, it's like one of the low hanging fruits, I think, in health, that if someone focuses on that, and then obviously the M, I love the 4 M's. That's, what is going to help make the biggest differences at first. And then, then it's about optimizing and really, and then continuing along that journey. So I think that's absolutely incredible. Where can people find you? What websites, et cetera?
So the best place would be, through the company, supergut.com.
Okay. Yeah.
We're present on social media as well. There's also professional, web pages that I've got through the University of Washington.
Okay.
And that's another way to look up some of the other work that I'm doing. But supergut.com through the different social media handles would be a great place to specifically learn more about some of the products that the company is making.
Amazing. You're a professor at the university, right? University of Washington? What do you
I am.
What do you teach there?
Yeah. So I'm a gastroenterologist.
Okay.
I still see folks in clinic and do procedures. If you're turning, it's actually 45 now, not 50 for your colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Really important public health message.
I got my thing right
Colon
here.
cancer is increasing.
Wow, of course.
So those are procedures that I do.
Okay.
And then also play a small role in the training program in microbiome specifically.
Oh, okay. So amazing. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I truly appreciate you. Guys, make sure that you hit up the doctor at supergut.com. They have a community there as well, actually. So that's actually cool. University of Washington, you can you can Google Dr. Chris, Damman, and find a lot of great information on him as well. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I truly appreciate you, and hopefully we'll talk again. Hopefully we'll speak about something else in this, maybe continue this, or maybe the colon. Maybe we need to talk about the colon, get these guys into the doctor. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Love it. Yeah. Real pleasure.